200, 300 hours that I've been in this organization with these young people. So, and this is just a small piece of some of the data that I've collected, and I'm gonna share that this afternoon. And this, you trying to make me feel stupid or something? This was my first day working in this organization. One of the young Latinas said, I was talking to them about how to frame a research question so they can study it. And she looks at me, you trying to make me feel stupid or something? I was just like, no, not at all. I'm trying to work with you to put a question together so you can research it. So when that happened, I said, and I was reading Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire, and I said, oh, there's some dehumanization's going on here. So let me look at how this is going on in the education system. So I had to throw that in there. I think that's powerful. So I'm going to talk about the methodology, how I've conceptualized dehumanization of Latino youth. And then my findings section, it's kind of theory and practice within this work. I show how students are dehumanized within the education system, and then I talk about a liberating pedagogy that we use in this community-based organization that counters that dehumanization. So I'm a critical ethnographer. I've been in the field. I've collected data at the center. I've been in their schools. I've been in 2 high schools with 3 or 4 of the youth, sitting in their chairs with them in the cafeteria, in the hallways, in lunch. I've been with them in institutions of higher education, award ceremonies, and I'm actually, in the next fall, I'm going to be with them within their community. Some of them have jobs. Some will shadow them while they're working and just get as much as I can, get an idea or feel of what they're going through in their daily lives within this context of, in the Midwest that they're living in. A lot of my data is coming through informal interviews, participant observation, and field notes. A lot of this data that I've collected is through audio recording observations of myself when I drive from the center to Iowa State. It's like a 35-minute drive, and I record what I observed, conversations we have, and then I'll follow up the next week when I meet these youth to kind of get a better idea of what was going on during that conversation, during that activity. And they're coming from 4 different high schools too within this town, and it's a pretty low-income, working-class community. Majority Mexican Americans, first generation, second generation, and it's in the state capital. The capital is like 2 blocks away from our center, and we're in a church cafeteria too. It's the 2nd year this program has started, so it's just grassroots. We're just at the beginning phases of it. So dehumanization, Paulo Freire talks about and argues that it's injustice, exploitation, oppression, and violence, right? And it leads to this unjust order within society and institutions. So I started on injustice, exploitation, oppression, and violence. Like, what does that look like within the literature? What does that look like within the education system? So I was doing some reading in subtractive schooling, Bacon education, criminalized, punish, and silence. Those are some forms or ways that the literature talks about the way the young people are dehumanized in education. So subtractive schooling, teachers don't care about them, there's lack of social and cultural resources. Banking education, the teacher just gets up here and lectures and lectures and lectures. Students have no input, no suggestions of what they should be learning, what they should be reading. And then the last one, criminalization, punishment, and silence. You have some of these institutions that are designed and structured and set up like institutions, like correctional institutions, prisons, juvenile homes. They have metal detectors you walk into, they get searched, they have security guards walking around, and also speaking Spanish. They've been told that, don't speak Spanish in the school, it's not welcome here. So I'm going to get to the findings of this is what I've gathered over the past 15 months of how these young folks are being dehumanized. So Maria here talks about she goes and asks her teachers for help, and she's asking the teachers for help, and they're saying, she goes, all they do is help the white students, and they don't help me. I ask them for help, and they tell me I should go read the book. So while I was observing Maria in her school, this came up many times. Maria would go to ask the teacher for help. The teacher would just ignore her. Somebody else would walk into the classroom. The teacher would go talk to the student, and then not return back to Maria and talk to her. And so Maria told me over time, she goes, this is why I stopped asking teachers for help, because they don't help me. I feel like they don't respect me. They don't care about me. And as we know, like, not asking for help or not addressing some of the issues within education can lead to lack of academic success, the continuation of going to college, and then gaining the academic tools that we need, right, to be successful in these institutions. Banking education. Santana here, he's a senior, and he was talking about how the teacher in his freshman year in his math class didn't have good teaching methods. So you give them worksheet after worksheet after worksheet. And all they do is fill out worksheets. There was no dialogue, there was no critically conscious, no critically thinking, he wasn't questioning, he wasn't challenged. So again, when I was observing this young man in his classroom, his Spanish teacher and his economics teacher did the same thing. And these are AP courses that this young man is in. And they're just giving him worksheets and worksheets after worksheets. And there's no dialogue. The teacher sat on his desk and was doing some work while the student just walked around and filled out worksheets based on some posters that were displayed across the classroom. And as Santana says in this happens often. It continues to go on. Criminalized, punished, and silenced. Cynthia says, you know, we're in the school, we're talking, and the teacher tells us to stop talking Spanish. It's not welcome in this school. I should, real quick, the demographics of this school, one of the primary school that these youth come from, 35% of the students are Latinos or Latinas. And in this city, this town, 1 of 4 students are Latinos or Latinas within the education system. So there's a growing population, and a lot, we're real young in elementary schools. So this school here is it's the largest school in the state, and the population is increasing. So also the criminalization of these young folks. Lorenzo told us, you know, he has to go to the restroom, he has to go out in the hallway. The teacher says that he calls the security guard on him. The security guard's searching him, searching his locker, patting him down because the teacher said that he had a knife with him. There was no weapon, no knife, this kid had a cell phone. So now what that does, that criminalizes him and makes him a criminal within his education system. So that's, you know, these lingering effects that take place once we label some students, right? So now that we were, I was gathering this data and listening to their stories of the way they were dehumanized, and we just started working with this high school group, and at the same time I was reading a lot about critical pedagogy, and approaches to work with youth within classrooms and outside of the institutions of education. So, along with a lot of conversations with my professor, we said, hey, we kind of took a step back and like, what are we really doing here with these young folks? What approach or pedagogy are we using? So we kind of discussed, you know, they're knowledge holders. We walk into, it's a center outside of the school too. It's away from the institution. It's like a block away across the street. So we said these young people are knowledge holders. They walk into the center with knowledge that they accumulated through life experiences in their community, family, right? And also we co-construct knowledge together. Similar to White Park, we don't sit there and say, this is what you need to know, this is what's going on. So what do y'all want to talk about? What are some of the issues, social, political, education issues you want to address? And let's talk about that. You all have some resources, bring some resources in. We'll bring some resources for you. And at the same time, and the share knowledge, right? So we also have them share what's going on with their world, in their education system, in their family, in their culture, in their history. At the same time, what we do is, we have resources. We're an institution of education. We work with primarily pre-service teachers. So we said, we're going to put you all in some places and spaces to share your knowledge with these folks who you're interacting with, who you may interact with in the education system. So we said, pre-service teachers, we're going to take you to these institutions. You are going to share your knowledge with them and what's going on in your experiences, right? So here's some of this. So these young folks as knowledge holders. This first photo here is, so with this organization that I'm working with, this is a planning session that we had. In the planning session, we bring the young folks with us, the 3 seniors, and they're at the table with directors, coordinators, specialists, and the young folks are there telling us what they need, what the center needs to look like, how it should function, what needs to be in there, what activities they need to do, in order to really have them feel like they're a part of this space and place. And it's really, kind of like I said, it's countering all this dehumanization that they're experiencing in the education system. Of saying, you're not a knowledge holder, you don't have no knowledge, your knowledge in history is not included in the textbooks. So we come to the center and we create these spaces for them. The bottom photo here is these young folks are doing Terioso's Whose Culture Has Capital. They've created a workshop and they go to these institutions and they're presenting amongst their peers on the assets that we hold and we accumulate through our community and through our lived experiences. So these folks are at tables making decisions related to an organization that's grassroots and just really developing and really blowing up. And at the same time, they're going to institutions of education giving presentations to their peers about assets. The second one is the co-construction of knowledge. So here we have some of the youth, we took them to Iowa State University. And we said, you know, you're going to work with some pre-service teachers, and we want you to explain and work with them on how to construct a socially just classroom. What should a classroom look like? That celebrates your culture, makes you feel welcome, and embraces who you are. So here on the side, you know, you have the teacher should motivate students. We shouldn't walk in there and be motivated, right? The students have a voice in the classroom. They don't want just worksheet after worksheet after worksheet. They want to engage in a dialogue. They want to share their knowledge. And the last one here is they have to celebrate our culture. And this last one is real important because after this comment was made, there was a conversation between two pre-service teachers and white middle-class women who are from the Midwest, and they said, they kind of went back and forth of, well, what if I only have one Latino or Latino student in my class? I don't feel like I need to celebrate or embrace their culture. So then the woman next to was like, well, I think you should, because it's important that, you know, we include everybody's culture regardless of how many students are in the classroom. So there's this, the way they're presenting and the knowledge that they're sharing, it's making these pre-service teachers kind of question and challenge and have a critical dialogue amongst themselves. And at the same time, we've heard pre-service teachers say, I look at these individuals completely different, right? I look at them as assets, knowledge holders, and I'm excited to embrace and work with them. Beforehand, I thought they just didn't care about education, like this myth of we don't value education, we don't value school. And the last one here is the shared knowledge. Again, it's in front of institution of education. They're presenting their work to pre-service juniors and seniors. And I think the most important part of this pedagogy and these places and spaces that these young people are being exposed to and introduced to, they're being proud of who they are, right? They're being proud that they have a voice. They're being proud of their culture and their history, and they're really embracing this moment and getting up there. And they're shining. I'm sorry, they're embracing it and they're enjoying what they're doing, and they know that they're making a difference for the next generation of students who are coming in the education system. They're really changing the way these pre-service teachers at this one institution are really looking at how they're going to approach their education system in the classroom. So concluding, this work, I think community-based organizations, I look at them as a space to create like radical social movements and really transformational agents in these spaces that are outside of the school systems. And we're in a church cafeteria with few resources, and these young people are really, they're really engaged in some great work, and they're making some changes within institutions of education, and they're making a change to improve the education system of the folks who are going to come after them. And now they're going into these institutions of education, such as Iowa State, and they're also engaged in some work. And there's some collaboration going amongst college students and high school students. And this transformational resistance and social and political liberation. At the same time that we're doing this work, these young folks are engaged in leading school walkouts. They're engaged in marches within this community. They're setting up panels for their teachers, their current teachers and current principals and board members to come hear them talk about the issues that are going on. And it's just been a real powerful 15 months of just seeing this critical consciousness, this transformational resistance through a pedagogy that's real grassroots and real, really this love and relationship that we've built with these young folks that allow them to see that, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and they can be the ones who can do this work and really change these institutions to improve it for themselves and future Latino and Latino students.